This is Jeff Steitzer, and you're listening to the Xbox Expansion Pass. Double kill, triple kill, overkill, killing spree, killing frenzy, Kilimanjaro, kill-tacular, kill-pocalypse, slayer, brains.
Welcome welcome all to episode 137 of the Xbox Expansion Pass, recorded on Sunday, June 26th, 2022. I am your host, Lohr, the InsipidGhost. In this episode, we're welcoming Sniper Elite 5's lead designer Ryan Baker on to discuss his work at Rebellion in bringing Sniper Elite action to gamers. It is kill cams galore, let me tell you. Prior to that, it's been a light news week, and so we dive deep into the XEP mailbag. Enjoy. Yet another week of gaming is upon us and behind us. Welcome to XEP, discussing all things in the gamerverse as they pertain to the Xbox ecosystem. And as I want to do each and every week, I like to start the show by offering words of kindness to those who have made my gaming week better. And this week, the words of kindness are extended to two different people whom I've had the pleasure of working with over the last few years, really since I started XEP, Mr. Boomstick XL and Archimedes / Boxenberger. I have gotten a chance to work with both of those gentlemen recently, which has been pretty darn cool, all things considered, because we podcasted a great deal when the pandemic first hit, and my schedule allowed me to work from home. But, obviously when I went back to work, I wasn't able to work with them based on when they do their live shows. Mr. Boomstick XL does like 48 different shows live during the week, all covering the world of Xbox. And Archimedes, his YouTube name is Boxenberger. He does very much the same in working with Boom, as well as his own show, and I got to be on his World of Gaming show recently as well. It was really fun, great to reconnect with those guys. I think I'm going to be joining Boom at some point in the next 2 weeks, provided my schedule allows it. And I just wanted to give them a good old shout out. If you are followers of them or you know them, please let them know that they were recipients of the words of kindness and how much I appreciate their work in covering games. It's always cool to see positive people in games. It's been a light news week this week. We've got one thing to cover, and that's about it before we dive into the mailbag and get to our interview this week. Probably as a result of the post-whatever E3 event like it was, really no new news came out. However, it was revealed this past week that 343 Industries is planning to put microtransactions into the Master Chief Collection. Now, this will raise eyebrows on a couple different fronts, and I want to go through just a little bit of the information here, as well as what it might mean after the fact. 343 has announced that it intends to that it could potentially be adding Spartan points to the Master Chief Collection as a way to replace the current season points. Essentially, what it does is it unlocks your ability to get cosmetics in the Master Chief Collection. If indeed those microtransactions are implemented, they would be additive, and it wouldn't affect how the players are currently earning points and leveling up in-game via the game's challenges. They believe they're going to have more information in the future on this. And I'm of two minds about this. On the one hand, the Master Chief Collection has been handled brilliantly in the past 3-4 years. Absolutely brilliantly. After an atrocious launch, 343 really did buckle down and repair the damage to the Halo franchise via the Master Chief Collection, and really has just a fantastic product in the MCC. In the idea of season points, they've added so many incredible unlockables that you get just for playing the game that it has to be praised there. The idea of adding these unlockables in an additive way via Spartan points that you can just purchase outright, I am of two minds about. The reason I'm of two minds about it is, on paper, I actually don't mind this. I'm fine with people that don't have the time but do have a little bit of extra cash getting the cosmetics that they want via real money. That doesn't bother me anymore the way it used to. When it bothers me is when I see it used in a way that is abusive or loot boxy, or the prices are so egregious that it doesn't match the time investment, and it breaks the game's time investment economy. The red flag that I get on this is simply put that it's 343, and they have truly and realistically botched the managing of microtransactions on Halo Infinite. I don't believe Halo Infinite's a disaster, and I will call out frustration when I see it. And I've talked about this in previous episodes, but the store on the MCC has been inconsistent and wavering. And they consistently say regarding Halo Infinite that it takes time to make changes. Well, there's been 7 months of having that store up, and the prices were going in the right direction despite sparing offerings each week. And then recently, for their most recent event, the prices were back up to like $20 for an armor. And that was way too much, way too much. And so it's a little bit odd to see because the MCC team has been so good at managing their community and giving content, whereas the Halo Infinite team has not. The idea that they would seemingly take a step back for the MCC is worrisome on some levels. I do think there is a way to do it right. And I'm still, I will say many times, I'm fine with microtransactions in games. I've seen it used very well with certain games like Fortnite does it extremely well with its bundles and still offering a fresh new game experience despite not losing its core gameplay elements. I'm fine with that kind of stuff. And if people have the cash for it, I'm cool with it too, provided they're also offering in-game ways to unlock content. It's just hazardous and worrisome when it's 343 involved because they've showed an inconsistent track record in treating fans right in this particular aspect of the game. Every time we have to bring up Halo, we have to acknowledge that the gameplay of Halo Infinite is great. The story really nailed it for the campaign. There's a lot to be celebrated with how that game successfully launched despite, pretty much disastrous introductions to the community. And I absolutely love Halo Infinite, but it is worrisome, right? Like there's no way around the problem that their content has been far too little in the 7 months that the multiplayer has been out, and their managing of the store has been downright pathetic, I would argue. And I think it's a fair statement to say that. I have a lot of nerves when it comes to that. So, interesting piece of news, something to watch. They say they may add it in the future. I mean, you can count on it. I'd bet you $100 that they would add purchasable microtransactions into that game because they need a way to monetize their live service stuff. And we're seeing that happen with Sea of Thieves. We're seeing it happen with Grounded in the future. We're seeing that happen with State of Decay 3 most likely. Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. And I understand and I'm fine with it, provided it's not abused, right? So there's something to that for sure. All right, let's see. I hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode with the Redout 2 developers. It was cool to have Giuseppe Franchi on for a second time. Really enjoyed having him. Really dope game in Redout 2. I'm curious if any of you guys checked it out. If you haven't caught that interview, please go back and give it a listen. I really enjoyed talking with him. This week's interview is pretty dope with Sniper Elite. I had a really good time. I realize that Sniper Elite kind of dances between this double and AAA element, but Sniper Elite 5 was a AAA game. They really did nail it on that one, and it's in Game Pass, and you guys should check it out for sure. I really like that game a lot, a whole lot. Before we get to listener mail, though, let's see. What have I been checking out of late? I told you guys, I think via Twitter, that I'm currently reviewing the SteelSeries Arctis Nova Pro wireless headset. It's like their newest line of Xbox-specific headsets. Very expensive, very high quality. They sent me one. I did not pay for it, so know that. Like, keep that in with a grain of salt. It is interesting to be using the Arctis Nova Pros because it would be in replacement to my Arctis 7s, and I have mixed feelings on the Nova Pros. There's a lot of good and a lot of frustration with it, and I want to get a little more time with it. I've had it for about a week and a half. I want a little bit more time before I share my thoughts. I want to read up on some of the audiophile reviews of it as well. I can tell you I think the headset's extremely good, and you wouldn't be going wrong to get it. Like, you'd be getting your money's worth. But there's a few like little things that are irking me here and there, and I want to get second and third opinions before I throw full endorsement, via XEP my way or your way via me. You know what I'm trying to say. But I like it. It's a good headset for sure. But I think I was partial to my Arctis 7s. I'm still not 100% there. I've been using it for a bit, but it's clearly a very good headset in that world, right? I will also let you know that we're going to be having an engineer from SteelSeries on the show at some point in the future. And what's kind of cool about that is that has paved the way. Turtle Beach has sent me their latest headset. I think it's the get it, strap in for this name, the 700 Gen Max 2 headset from Turtle Beach. And that has paved the way for me to check out that headset, as well as have one of the engineers for that headset on the show. So it's kind of a cool departure from the voice actor, designer, producer element of the gaming world into more of a hardware-based element. We might even do that the same thing for a gaming mouse at some point, just to see how that works with Game Pass for PC. And let me know if you guys like them. Right, I wanted to branch a little bit away from the game development side as far as our interviews go, and tell me what you think, because am I the right guy to be reviewing the best headset for the little piece element of an audiophile breakdown? No, but I am a casual gamer who has a little bit of spending money to check out different types of hardware, and that's the approach that I'm taking to kind of go with this stuff. So let me know how you feel about that stuff, and if you like the hardware element of interviews and whatnot once they happen, I can reach out to more, right? Like I can try to see if that's something that we want to have on the show a bit more often. Controller designers, that kind of stuff. But I wanted to test it out and see, right? Just something to see how it goes. But yeah, let me know what you guys think once those things do come to pass. But you'll hear my full review of the Arctis Nova Pro wireless next week, and then probably 2-3 weeks after that, my thoughts on the Turtle Beach headset, and you can kind of piece together how that's going to work. Let's see here. I don't think there's any more as far as interviews that you guys need to know about at this time. I'm reviewing a horror game called Phobia, St. Dinfa Hotel. It's kind of a horror game in the vein of the old Resident Evils, but without quite the tank controls. Really enjoying it so far, but that's all I can say at this point. You'll hear good thoughts on that one next week as well. Well, I think it's a good point to get into listener mail at this point. Alrighty, our first question comes from Mr. Stubbs Gaming. Stubb, what's up, man? I hope you're doing well, buddy. He wants to know how I'm liking Fall Guys free to play now that it's over on Xbox. So, Stubbs, I have been holding off on Fall Guys free to play, Fall Guys in general on Xbox until the Halo content comes, which is this upcoming week. In fact, by the time most of you are listening, I will probably have been and be playing Fall Guys in my Master Chief attire or whatnot. But I gotta say, I'm watching a lot of friends play it, friends that I wouldn't have expected to play Fall Guys, and that game looks fun. It looks fun. It looks cool. The ability to customize your little Fall Guy and put him in different outfits. I've seen Doomslayer outfits and stuff. Like, yo, I'm in. I think that's really fun and really cool. Fortnite does that really well, and given that it's Epic Games now with Fall Guys, like I'm in on that. So that's what I've been waiting on, but I'm excited to dive in on that for sure. God help my wallet if they start doing the Fortnite method, because if the game is as fun as it looks and my friends and crew jump into it and I'm spending money the way I do in Fortnite, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, next question comes from Court Lalonde. He says, would you consider this year so far to be the best for indie devs to shine since the release of AAA games has been so sparse? That's a great question, Court, and shout out to you and your buddy Matt over there. You guys are awesome and rocking it. The best chance for indie games being in 2022 as opposed to recently? Sure, I suppose so. Indies have long been the lifeblood of hardcore gaming, and it's often a failing on content creators to spotlight that element of it. But really, since work from home started and AAA releases staggered and came in waves and delayed, indies have continued to do what they do because they were always in a work from home state. It's the best chance for them? Sure, I guess you could say that. I don't know that I would consider it better or worse or anything else. It feels like it's par for the course for indies to continue to come out and surprise us. And oftentimes the best games are indie experiences because our expectations for AAA experiences are just so high that we forget to have fun with them. When I think of indie right now, I think about stuff that I have in my backlog to try out. Tunic being a good example of that. I'm so ready for Tunic, and I have it and I could play it. I've got other stuff that I've been checking out instead. Look at the recent success of Shredder's Revenge, right? That's an indie studio in Mindshare, but it's Tribute Games, and they partner up with Dotemu. And, I get it when people wonder, what does that mean? But really, I think, sure, absolutely. It's a good year for indies to do what they do best and shine in ways that they don't always get to. I also have to credit and thank Game Pass for doing a good job of spotlighting indies continuously, repetitively, and without fail. The Game Pass team seems to find great indies to put into the service and spotlight different teams and different titles. I think that's really, really cool. I don't know if anyone caught last week during the Redout interview. I asked him if he ever thought about diving or putting Redout 2 in a service, and he could not have said no fast enough. And it caught me off guard because so often you hear people that are celebrating being in Game Pass. You'll hear it from Ryan Baker about Sniper Elite, but Giuseppe so quickly was like, no, Redout 2 never was considered for that. Like, oh, okay. In the idea of indies going well, we had, I think it was Blaze Knight write in. Let me scroll for a minute. Yep, Blaze Knight wrote in and asked about the summer game demos that came this past few weeks, which ones I checked out and which ones I was interested in. And that's another good time to point out that Xbox is doing a good job spotlighting indies, and I'm appreciative of it. To answer Blaze Knight's question, Terror of the Hemosaurus was the game that I most enjoyed from this summer game demos. That's a game by Lohr and Lemke. He did the Super Blood Hockey title, if you guys have not checked that out before. It is a super fun just destruction game based on kind of the old Rampage titles, where you're this giant monster that a cult has brought back to cleanse the world of bad humanity. And you can kick little pixelated people as you knock down buildings. You can eat them. You can kick cars and throw them into different buildings, very much the way you could if you were playing the old Rampage games. I'm a big fan of kaiju style games, which we don't get a lot of in a Western showcase style event. Usually they show up in like JRPGs and such. But I really like Terror of the Hemosaurus. I hope that game goes well. I've debated having Lohr and Lemke on at some point. Maybe I'll reach out to him. But that was one of my favorite games. And to kind of continue, I downloaded a lot of those demos, checked out Stuffed, Polyfury, Metal Hellsinger got a lot of attention. It's that music game that looks like Doom Eternal. Broken Pieces, I think it's pronounced. Severed Steel, Batora Last Haven, and Spiderheck all look kind of cool. I mean, it's fun when you see that kind of stuff in there. I'm not one for demos, typically. I'm not a big demo player, but I did want to spotlight and showcase a few of them just for the sake of supporting those developers. But I tend to wait for full release. I don't even play a lot of early and preview games. I know we had, if you guys remember back to 2020, we had Adam Brenke on when Grounded first launched into early access and got 1 million players in a week. That was super cool. Well, now Grounded is like almost at its 1.0 release. This September it's going to have its 1.0 release, and maybe I need to have Adam back on the show, right? Like I think that would be a really cool thing to do. Fenrir wrote in on that same topic. Man, I'm crushing these transitions by accident here. Fenrir wrote in, he says, does Grounded deserve the same fanfare of a first-party release, or does it not count due to its preview status? Thinking of the no first-party in 2022 narrative. That's a great question, Fenrir, and I don't think it deserves the same first-party release because it is working with a different group. It's being made by Obsidian, and it's being published by Xbox, but it was also published in conjunction with another group, which is absolutely escaping me at the moment, and I'm so embarrassed. But Grounded has been in early access for 2 years. There have been 12 updates already released into the game. It's going to have its 1.0 in September. It is a budget title. It's going to be launching at $30 over on I'm sorry, it is $30 right now on Xbox if you want it in early access. It's $24 if you have Game Pass, which is cool. The game will release in a Game Pass, so you don't need to buy it. And on Steam, it's going to be a full release at $40 come September. Granted, it's a weird one because at this point, you've gotten 10 million players to check out the backyard, and there's a lot of things they've added to it. But I don't think it feels like a first-party release. I don't think it feels that way. I don't know if we'll see Xbox go all out on marketing, but we really didn't get a whole lot of coverage on it in this like faux E3 event. And that no first party in 2022 narrative, I think would be a disservice if all they had was Grounded. If they used that first party game releases in 2020 narrative and they spotlighted things like Grounded and Deathloop, then I think it would be a old games old type thing. We've already seen these games. It wouldn't be fresh and new. And the narrative would actually work against them, which would be a shame, right? Like, I think that's a silly bit of logic to go on. But I do think that is the case in many times when it comes to gamers and the way they receive news. So, take that for what you will. But I think it's cool that Grounded has gotten 10 million players. I'm really excited for their 1.0 launch. And if I can get my friend group to dive in, I'd check it out again. We're back in on Sea of Thieves pretty hard now. Shout out to Sea of Thieves, man. Oh, those new Athena missions, the Veil missions, really, really cool. But I am so desperate for a PvE setup in Sea of Thieves. They've got those missions that are great, but sometimes I just want an uninterrupted voyage. And down at this point, I'd pay real money for it. Like I love Sea of Thieves, but I'm a little tired of the PvP. That's not why I play the game. And there are a lot of pirates out there who only exist to go attack other pirates, and it's like, yeah, that's not how I want to enjoy the game. But there are a lot of people that do. So cheers to them for that. Logan, leave me alone. If you're on the seas with me and you see my ship out there and you're not on my crew, don't you dare come attack me. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of that. How dare you? Next question comes from Mr. Brendan Myers. He says, let's see, what does he say? He says, what would the best Xbox game series to be on other platforms and why? I have an idea, but I want you to share your answer and I want to share mine with you after. Brendan, this is one of those really fun hypothetical questions. I think the logical answer here is Sea of Thieves, but upon reflection, I think that's actually a bad move if they were to do that. They've done a great job at putting their titles onto PC. Both Sony and Xbox are really, really in on that, and I think that's cool. I like that. But I don't think it would actually serve Xbox well to put Sea of Thieves over on PlayStation. Now, I think there is a logic and a good benefit in this hypothetical to having more players to check out your title. Like, obviously, that's the way to do it. But Sea of Thieves is the most successful live service title that Xbox has in its pantheon right now, and it's a full price game over in the PC place. You can check it out via Game Pass. You can check it out on Xbox via Game Pass, but also you can buy the game at full price. So I don't think if they're having such success with it there, you want to add in an element to maybe my logic's flawed here. And it would help Sea of Thieves, sure, but I'm trying to fight my own logic. I wonder if in this fun hypothetical Halo Infinite's not the right answer. You put Halo Infinite over on the PlayStation space and let that thing do numbers there with its free-to-play element. I think that might be the right answer. Once you get Halo Infinite's store fixed in terms of multiplayer, you put the multiplayer over on PlayStation and keep the single-player stuff exclusive. That might be a way to do it. Grounded is another good example of a game that might do really well on PlayStation. In fact, Grounded is probably the answer. Grounded is probably the best answer. But these hypotheticals, it's, you know what I mean? Every time you give a first party exclusive to your competition, you're enhancing that game's player base, but you are removing an incentive for people to pick up your service and platform. But Xbox doesn't seem to be overly opposed to that. I mean, they're putting their stamp onto smart TVs where all you need is a controller, and it could be a PlayStation controller to play their games on it. You just got to log in. And there's a future where that's going to happen, where you're going to be on a PlayStation 6, maybe even a PlayStation 5, and you just log into your Xbox account. I mean, the tech is there. You could do that right now. It's Sony that's likely stopping that because Xbox has shown they're willing to do that stuff. So I don't know, man. It's one of those fun hypotheticals, and my answer might be Sea of Thieves, it might be Grounded, it might be Halo. Maybe the best of the best answer, it's the third time I've said that, is Flight Simulator, right? Flight Sim might be the one, right? I don't know, man. It's a fun question though. I dig it. It really is a fun question, but I'm a big fan of more people playing and rising tides lift all boats kind of thing, but what are you going to do there? This question came from Anonymous. They wanted to stay anonymous, and I guess it's the nature of the question is why. They noticed that I'd been picking up all of the old James Bond games on Xbox 360, and I did this part intentionally. I cheekily put GoldenEye Reloaded at the top of my stack in the picture that I put out there, and I said that I was doing research, and they wanted to know if I know anything about GoldenEye coming to Xbox. I don't know if I've said this before on the show. I repeatedly remind people that I'm not an insider, but by way of talking to people and interviewing people, most of which you guys hear the interviews, but sometimes you don't hear them because we keep them private because it turns out they shared something they didn't want to share and whatnot. Sometimes I hear things, right? At last I heard, which is not recent information, It's like 2-3 months old. Last I heard regarding James Bond and Goldeneye coming back to Xbox and launching, because those achievements are being unlocked. The problem was not necessarily with Nintendo or Rare or Xbox. The problem was with the Bond license. If you remember, in 007 Legends and in GoldenEye Reloaded on Xbox 360, they swapped out the Daniel Craig model for Pierce Brosnan or for Sean Connery or whatever it was in the respective Bond movie that they were spotlighting. They put Daniel Craig in there. If you do a GoldenEye remaster, what do you do with Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig? And if you're unaware, the Bond license is an absolute mess for which studios have it, which don't, and it's really uh, um, it's a miracle that we got all the Daniel Craig movies that we did. Which, by the way, those are my favorite Bond films. If you watch them start to finish in release order, they tell an extremely complete narrative. Really, really good. And No Time to Die was just a masterpiece of Bond film, and I absolutely loved it. But you guys should check that out if you haven't already. Just great storylines. But it was the Bond license that was holding up the release of this GoldenEye remaster or re-release. I don't know if it is a remaster or re-release. I'm really not sure. But that was last I heard. I don't know, Mr. Or Mrs. Anonymous person that DMs me asking me about GoldenEye. But that's what I've heard, and who knows? There are probably better insiders for you to ask for sure. All right, last question comes from, two more questions. This question comes from Todd Oxtra. He wants to know, are there any games beyond Gotham Knights that have me excited for this fall? Absolutely, Todd. Yes, there are a ton of games coming out this fall, and it was really upon reflection that I realized there was a lot that I am looking forward to, but I don't know that they all stay in the fall, given how crowded October has become. I mean, October is packed for sure. Callisto Protocol is one of the games I'm looking forward to this fall and winter. Modern Warfare 2, I'm excited for. I am very excited for Modern Warfare 2 in a way that I wasn't expecting to be, but not the multiplayer. Not the multiplayer. Halo Infinite still has me multiplayer right now, but there's plenty of time between now and then. Midnight Suns, I'm interested in, though I don't think I'm going to like it as much as I like other titles. I prefer action in my superhero games, and it looks like this is an XCOM style game and they've yet to show gameplay of, but it does look cool and it has a lot of cool characters, so I'm sure I'll give it a whirl at some point. Sonic Frontiers is a game I am looking forward to, even though it is not getting previewed well. There's something about a morbid curiosity that I'm interested to check out at some point. I need to get Sonic Origins, but I can't bring myself to spend the money on it, and Sega never got back to me as far as an interview with that team. I do need to check out Sonic Origins now that it's out. Yeah, we'll see. But Sonic Frontiers, morbid curiosity. I want to know. I just want to know. That same morbid curiosity leads me to Scorn. That game's in Game Pass, thank God, because I don't want to pay money for it. But I want to try that game because it was spotlighted so heavily when the Xbox was first announced. But it looks gross, and I'm not really in for gross, but visual fidelity is cool. So let's see if it pushes the Xbox Series X, Star Trek Resurgence is another one that I'm stoked for. Their release date got moved around a little bit, thus I didn't get to have them on the show when I thought that I would, but I am looking forward to that game. And then the last one, which if the release dates hold, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. I love the Avatar world. Really like James Cameron's Avatar a lot, and I'm curious to see what Massive Entertainment and Ubisoft have put together. If it's a Ubisoft game in that world, I'm in. I'm in for that. I'm over Assassin's Creed. I'm over the Animus and the different worlds and what they do with Assassin's Creed. But I'm like Pandora, being in the world of the Na'vi. Absolutely, I would play a Ubisoft game in that setting. That's what I would want to do. Actually, that would be the fresh uplift that I would take for it. Flying around on different creatures, being a part of the ecosystem, battling mechs. Yeah, that'd be dope. I'm in on that one. Last question, Mr. Edward Varnell. Edward Varnell, who puts me on my toes every week with his weird and wacky questions. Edward, every week I say that, and I love you to death, but you always find a way to up the ante. You asked, do you think that some of Microsoft's emotional story moments will become noticeable, or do games like Tell Me Why kind of carry that banner and they get ignored? Edward, I don't know what you're talking about, man. There are some incredibly good emotional moments. If you've played Halo Infinite's campaign, there is one of the most emotional moments in the world where your faceless hero of Master Chief is sitting next to the pilot, and the pilot is confessing some terrible things that he has done. And Chief looks at him and he says, "We all make mistakes. That's what makes us human." And in that moment, there's a weight of the Halo franchise where it's acknowledging that Chief is still human himself, something that's been debated and frustrated. Those two characters are dealing with massive loss of just being bodied by their enemy and just being destroyed and devastated and having to try and rebuild humanity. And it's not a run and gun shooter, and it's a more patient Master Chief. It's a thoughtful, introspective one, and that's a very emotional time. Gears of War has done this as well with Kate and with Marcus and JD having these grand emotional moments. And I don't think games like Tell Me Why are the only games carrying the flag for emotional moments. I don't think that because Tell Me Why deals with marginalized communities and LGBTQ plus that's what makes it emotional. I don't think that's the only way you get emotion out of your games. Loss and pain and combat can provide emotion. It's not always run and gun in a lot of the titles that might spotlight or put trailers up to showcase it. I'm thinking about Sea of Thieves right now, and those have some incredibly emotional storytellings. You have to dig to find them to play their tall tales, and there's this shroud, forgive the pun, Sea of Thieves fans, that covers up a lot of those emotional moments. But the stories that are in there are romantic and beautiful, and ones of redemption, and they're extremely emotional. And that's really cool, but they don't necessarily showcase that element. That's for the people to dive into. I think Tell Me Why, your example, is a game that sells itself because it's emotional, whereas Halo and Sea of Thieves and Gears, they sell themselves on their action and their discovery, but the emotion is still in there. It's just a matter of how you market the game, but those moments are in there. And not for nothing, I've had some of my most anger-filled moments, my most happy moments in Sea of Thieves because of the nature of that game. I've had some very introspective moments with the Halo franchise in combination with the games and the books. And so I think the issue with the question is it's a matter of how the game is marketed and what the experience that comes from it is. Nobody would argue that you are marketing Halo to be a massively emotional franchise, but if you go back and look at some old trailers, I mean they do showcase that. It's just a matter of, are you willing to listen? Are you willing to be a part of that experience in the way that would make you feel emotional? I think that's the big difference. That's the big difference. Alrighty, guys, that's it for me this week. I'm going to send you over to an interview with Ryan Baker from Rebellion to discuss Sniper Elite 5. I want to give a shout out to several of you. I saw the tweets where you guys tweeted and let people know that you heard about their game because of XEP, Shredder's Revenge, and you did the same with Redout. That's the stuff that gives XEP life. That's the stuff that gives me excitement. When I see you tweet, "Hey, X developer, I heard about you," or "I heard your interview on the Xbox Expansion Pass. Love it. Checking out your game because of it." That means the world to me, guys. That's the stuff that helps me so much with PR companies, with developers, with gaining ground, I guess you would say, and getting to talk to more people. So thank you for that. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Enjoy the interview. Take care. Alrighty, guys, we are very fortunate now to welcome on Ryan Baker from Rebellion, lead designer for Sniper Elite 5. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
It is my pleasure to have you on. Congratulations on the release now of Sniper Elite 5. The game is out and seemingly quite well received. I've enjoyed it greatly for sure. How has the team felt since the launch of the title?
Yeah, it's been great. It's always really fun when you finally get the game you've been working on for many years out to the public, and you get to actually talk about it and see how it's received and see what people do with the game. And it's brilliant, and it's just, we're all very happy about how well it's been received, and seeing what people do as well, because no matter how much you plan, how much you think, yeah, okay, this is what people are going to do, when you've got a game that's got a lot of choice and options for the player, people always manage to do these very interesting and exciting player choices as they go through the levels, and it's just great to see what people come up with, and watching all the various videos that people post online. It's brilliant, really good fun.
Well, let's top on that then. Are you guys, when you're checking out gameplay that players are putting out there from Sniper Elite 5, are you in streams watching, laughing up a storm? Do you guys have notebooks to your side, taking notes on little things? What's the experience like for you watching players play your game?
Oh, definitely. We always read what the community's saying about our games, about our previous games, what they're hoping for new games. But then, yeah, as soon as a new game's out, we're in there watching streams, checking out forums, seeing what people like, and seeing the things that they'd like to, what improvements they'd like to see as well. But it's just great watching people play properly. There's nothing can quite beat watching a new player go in, seeing them engage with the things we really hoped they would enjoy. Um, and then also seeing the things that they do just differently, like, oh yeah, we're pretty sure that everyone's going to take this right path here, and then finding that so many people end up taking different routes and doing different things, and it's really great fun, and we're always there taking notes, figuring out why did they do this, how did they do that, using it for future projects, but also using it for anything that we think we can improve with the support for the current game as well. um, it's good to go out there and make sure that the game's as good as possible. And we're releasing a patch very soon, actually, another patch to update various bits and pieces of the game. It's that's one of the good things about games these days, is it's very easy to, well, I say very easy, there's a lot of work goes into it, but to update these games as you go along and make sure they're the best they can be.
Well, I'd imagine it's more and more complex. Certainly, with this being the fifth game in the series, it might be difficult to keep ideas fresh, and keeping the series alive. But it certainly seems that you all have done that with various elements of Sniper Elite 5. How did you go about distinguishing this game from the previous entries in this series, but still staying true to the Sniper Elite formula?
Yeah, it's always a challenge, because we know what the basis of the game is when you're making a sequel. You know the sort of parts we want to keep. And I think we've worked hard on, from back on, especially the difference between Sniper Elite V2 and to Sniper Elite 3. We're like, oh, we want to open things up a little bit more, and then we keep taking that and growing it. For the jump from sort of Sniper Elite 3 to 4, we went much more sandboxy, and we've pushed that again this time round, but making sure we keep the sniping as a core part of the game, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but then really sort of leaning into more of the sides of a sort of core loop of observe, plan, execute, um, and really finding ways for players to give players more choice. That's something that's a core to the game. Um, Giving players more options of how they want to solve these problems, taking away necessarily the reliance on that sniper rifle, so people can go more stealth. There's much more choice there of people being able to go, yep, right, I'm gonna stealth through this bunker, this area, take out the enemies, or maybe they want to stay back and shoot all these people from a distance, and they might decide they want to do that carefully, taking out somebody as they're not looking, and then taking off the other stragglers until they've narrowed it down to like one remaining enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas other people, they're more than happy to just go running in with a machine gun and shoot everything, lob a grenade in, and that's something that we just, with each game, we wanted to just expand on, improve on, give more choice and options, and the more options you get, the more combinations you end up with of how people play the game, and I think that'll always keep it fresh when you can, and it can feel like it's your own playthrough. It's you're not being railroaded at all. But then on top of that, we have the usual thing of sort of refining the gameplay, improving the visuals and stuff like that, which we're always making great leaps and bounds with every game. We've got hugely talented teams like the art team, their photogrammetry and all the stuff the audio team do, rehauling the AI, lots of things to the some people wouldn't instantly notice to the player, but under the hood make a big difference to how the game feels and plays. But Rebellion have also been really good with taking risks as well, with stuff like adding in the bullet cam. That's obviously become a core part of the game, one of the most well-known parts of the game. Um, and keeping that in a way that stays interesting, expanding it to bigger, larger sandbox levels over the past few games, but then taking that extra leap this time round. We've added in invasion mode, which again for us is something we haven't done before, but it's taking risks with each new iteration of the game, working hard, and ultimately they pay off. You work hard enough, we play test things. Everybody's involved in the whole team on sort of the creative side and the implementation side. So it's always good to get that feedback, and we change things a lot. Game development is a constant sort of fluctuation of, yep, we've got these things, and then ultimately over time they morph and change into something that's even better than we originally envisioned. And yeah, for this time around, it's that invasion mode has been our sort of risk take that we took this time around, and people seem to be really engaging with that and really enjoying it. It's brilliant.
I've got that on my docket to talk about in a few minutes for sure, because I have a lot of questions there about how you guys implemented and went about it. But I want to roll back the tape just a little bit. I'm an avid Sniper Elite player myself, and I would encourage any listener to check the series out. I absolutely adore it. But that core element of observe, plan, and execute seems to be my favorite aspect of it. And for context, Ryan, I'm a terrible player. I play it on easy mode. I absolutely appreciate what you guys have done in Sniper Elite 5 with the adjustable and customizable difficulty elements of the game. You managed to keep that observe, plan, execute loop in there, but allow the player to customize their experience really well. Was it older titles that taught you guys that? Was it titles outside of the Sniper Elite series that taught you that? How did you guys go about creating those difficulty levels?
I think it's a lot of it does come from our previous iterations of the game. But we look at all sorts of other games. We're making games. We're doing this because we absolutely love games in general. So we play a lot of games. You take a lot of inspiration from all sorts of areas, and accessibility is obviously a very big topic over recent years with game development and games in general. And part of that is making the game more accessible to people, and that's something that, as I say, player choice is a key thing in Sniper Elite series and to Rebellion as a whole. They like to give people the options of how they want to go about doing things. And the difficulty is part of that. We didn't want to just have the easy, medium, hard, or just no difficulty at all, and just saying, yep, this is the way it's meant to be played. This is what you got to do. We want as many people as possible to play. And just when you're starting with, this is a sniper game, shooting a sniper rifle is always tough because you tend to be doing it at long distances, and there's all the semi-realistic sort of gunplay mechanics, stuff that we put into there with our bullet drop and our wind. But we want to make sure that people come in and they don't find it too difficult, or they aren't turned off by how the learning curve for some of those features. So it's important to us to add those difficulty levels and then keep expanding on it, because we had various difficulties in previous iterations of the game. And this time around we've added a very easy option, because we still found some people found it tough on the easy difficulty in Sniper Elite 4. So we're like, okay, what can we do to make this that a little bit simpler, make it more forgiving for people, so they can just go in and enjoy the gunplay, enjoy the power fantasy of being this elite commando going in and taking on a whole army's worth of enemy soldiers. But then this also goes the other way. We've got a lot of great hardcore fans that want it to be really difficult, and that's where we get our authentic mode comes in. And there's a lot of people that love playing that, and I will admit I could not complete the game on that mode. It is so difficult. It's so tough. Losing your aim assist
level.
No, exactly. It's so difficult to do. But this is some of the videos we love watching of people playing through authentic, and it's just like, wow, how are they making that 500-meter shot without any aids? And often they'll do it without even missing a couple of shots first. Like when I play authentic, I'm like, Right, take a shot. Okay, that's gone way wide. Right, I'll take another shot. Okay, gone the other way. And it takes me many, many shots. Normally, by the time I finally hit somebody, everybody in the area knows where I am and what I'm doing. But yeah, again, we just want people to have those options, have those choices of how do you want to play the game, how difficult do you want the game to be, and then when you're in there, how do you want to play it? Do you want to play really stealthy, sneaking around, and like we say, the observe, plan, execute? Do you want to just snipe, move around from the distance, taking everybody out, or do you just want to run in, going as loud as you want, and Rambo it? And it all just falls under that Propellian philosophy of just giving player choices, and the custom difficulty helps with that as well, because authentic may be a little bit too much for some people, but they might want some of the elements there, like getting rid of the HUD. It makes it instantly tougher but more immersive, but they might want some of the support for those sniper shots and things, and it's adding more and more options there just to give people that choice so they can play and enjoy the game as much as they can.
You've used the term sandbox a couple times here, and I don't know if it's my memory of the other Sniper Elite games, most recently 4, in terms of mainline, but it feels to me like this sandbox is far more complex and intricate than any of the other ones before, and I think you've alluded to that. Uh, when you're creating this power fantasy of this elite commando going in and sniping out entire armies, is it this? And this question comes from a listener, Famous Seamus. Is it difficult to balance being historically accurate but still making the game like fun and the gameplay entertaining?
Yeah, it's always a sort of a fine line that we're balancing, because we pride ourselves on basing a lot of what we do on sort of World War II reality, all the weapons we have. Even with our deep weapon customization, everything we have in our customization are things that were available at the time. Realistically, no one probably could attach them to all these different weapons in the ways we've got, but an engineer could do that sort of thing. Technically, it's got to be believable, even if it wasn't something that would really have happened at the time.
Sure.
And it's the same with things like we had in the bullet drop, we add in the wind affects the bullets, and we exaggerate those slightly because the wind and the bullet drop wouldn't happen at the distances to the extent that we do it, but we gamify it slightly, and obviously we gamify things with how many shots the player can take before they're severely injured and dying or anything like that. But then we take away some of these moments in the aforementioned authentic difficulty. It becomes much tougher. But it's always it's tough to figure out exactly where we fall. We have a lot of conversations on, is this real enough, or is this too real? Is it fun to play? And we do a lot of prototyping and playing around with numbers and things like that in the background to figure out what works best. And then there are certain things that we're like, yeah, this is cool, but this is a bit too far for some people. Let's shove that into authentic, and then the people that really want that kind of difficulty can experience that and enjoy that. It's good fun though, looking at all the reference, like World War II. There's a huge amount of variety of stuff there. Even when it comes to our locations of the levels, a lot of the locations are based on real world places. Often they're an amalgamation of multiple places. There's level 3, which is our spy academy, which is set on the island with the big abbey at the top, and that's based on a real world location. And there's when you read up, there's so much research that you can do and things written about World War II. And there were rumors that secretly the location it's based on in real life is that there was a secret spy academy there and people were being trained there. And when you look into it more realistically, that probably didn't happen, but it was enough for us to be like, that would be cool though if that was the case and that did happen. And we end up using that to sort of twist it into our story and add the elements of believability to everything we do, and keeping it fun, I guess. If we try to make it too realistic, it then only really sort of appeals to a much more niche amount of players.
Right. Well, I mean, our our main hero, Carl Fairborn, he has traveled in previous games to North Africa, to Italy, and now we're in France. You talked about photogrammetry and then kind of this balance between believability and whatnot. In finding these locales, what makes a good location for a level or for the entire game versus one that you would say no to?
I think initially with Sniper Elite 3, with going to Africa, that was a part of World War II that, especially at the time, hadn't been shown in video games very often. And the same with Sniper Elite 4 set in Italy. That's something that people don't see very much, but they've also got very iconic visuals to the side of them. They stand out massively. And then we are following for 3, 4, and 5. They do follow a timeline, and they're progressive. And we got to France again for Sniper Elite 5. And we're like, yeah, we really want to go into France now. It's much more well known. But we believe there's some really interesting places. We've got with all the occupation from the Axis forces, with things like the Atlantic Wall, these big bunkers, all these really interesting and iconic locations. We knew we could do something special, and often it starts with what could we initially what can grab you very quickly. And in our first level coast, that is it's the coastline, it's the beach, and it's the iconic. Oh yeah, this looks like the sort of places that they stormed on D-Day. You've got all those defenses along the way. There's lots of bunkers very regularly put along to create that Atlantic Wall. And then you've got the hedgerows and the fields, and all of these things are instantly iconic and interesting to look at. And then you go into like the second level, and we have a huge sort of chateau that's instantly interesting to look at. And as soon as when we find something that's exciting for us, and we're like, oh yeah, that looks great initially, but also we could do this kind of gameplay, we could do this thing. And we visited a load of these real places, especially the artists and the level designers. A lot of them traveled around, visited places, and there were some of them you just get this instant feeling of like, oh wow, this could be awesome. We could be doing this, and straight away, before we've even decided exactly what we're doing in the game, you're there imagining like, what would Carl do? Oh, we could have him going down this way, we could have him traversing up here, climbing that, and it ends up informing these exciting moments. And often we'll mix various parts together from these different locations we found. Like there'll be a cool bunker perhaps, and we'll take that from one place, and La Coupolle's got a really cool dome on it, so we'll take that part and put it in here. And there's all these just fantastic locations that you can, a lot of them, because of the way they're built with the huge amounts of concrete, there's all these Axis created locations, but they're still there because they're huge and they're fortified for a reason at the time, so they're still standing. They're a bit overgrown, some of them, but some are turned into museums and various things. But there's that great bit of imagination that comes in straight away as soon as you see it, inspiration. And it can often be the difficulty of trying to decide which ones are we going to keep, which ones are we going to stick with, because there's such a wealth of options there. And
Sure.
ultimately it goes down to which moments can we put together, what do we think we can get a really strong level in, where can we give players something that will be exciting, will be a bit different, but also will be great to look at.
Well, there's been so much in Sniper Elite 5 that has just caught my eye with the visuals and the aesthetics, and it seems to me that you guys really have upped the ante from the previous Sniper Elite series. I mean, it's just it looks fantastic. I've been playing it on Series X and S for any listener that's curious. I have to say, and I'm sure this isn't news to you, without a doubt, my favorite aspects of the Sniper Elite games and the spinoffs with Zombie Army are the X-ray kill cams and the tricks that you guys do with the camera. How much fun is it for you guys to work on that and develop?
They're great. They're amazing thing. The kill cams. They've got the magic just right that they never manage to get boring. They always stay with their sort of gory glory, as I see a lot of people describing it. It's they're gross and disgusting, but people can't help but watch them and see what's going on. And I think a lot of that is because it's your kill cam, it's your sense of ownership and a celebration of your skill, and they are they are good fun to work on. Seeing all these things once we start getting them in, because we quite often we have them from the previous versions of the game, but then we get these extra fidelity in there, extra layers to it, and it becomes more satisfying seeing, yes, I've managed to pull off this excellent shot. As soon as you see that Carl's taking the shot, and yes, I've got this person, then seeing it go through and seeing, where did I hit them? Did I hit them in the body? Did I hit them in the face? I imagine for some of the VFX team, there's a lot of gory stuff they have to work on. There's a lot of not very nice models they have to make, making all these internal organs and things. But then once it all comes together, it's fantastic and it's good fun. And there's a lot of fun in the office with people playing around things. A lot of shared videos of people making these incredible skill shots, and obviously the sort of the fan favorite with the testicle shots. That's something that very early on was an initial thing. It's like, can we do this? Do we do this? Is it too far? But it still hasn't lost its magic with a lot of the fans and players of the game. They still love going for that. It's always fun when you take one of our games to game shows and you get to see people playing it for the first time. A lot of people, they're going there and they're like, right, I need a headshot, like they do in most games. But then you'll see every other player perhaps they'll go to the body and then they go down a little bit, and you're like, I know what this person's aiming for. Mm-hmm. But the celebration as soon as they hit that, of them and the people around them, it's there's a lot of fun to be had with those kill cams.
Oh, so okay. So I have several questions on that topic, but I want to include a question from Clint Coombs. He also notes. He said he wanted me to thank you guys just for making games, because he's been a huge fan of Rebellion since the Alien vs Predator games all the way back on Jaguar. He also loved the Delta Force Black Hawk Down games as well as Sniper Elite. So he wanted me to offer you thanks for those. Did you work on any of those? I'm curious.
I didn't work on those. No, they were before my time, but I will pass along your thanks to other members of Rebellion. They will definitely love to hear that. It's always great when you hear things from people that have been fans for a very long time. Certainly.
So now the question that he has for you is, what was it like in the meeting room when testicle shots came up, or when the discussions of, hey, we need to get this just not quite right? Was that a fun, awkward, weird conversation?
I wasn't there for the original meetings for those. I hadn't joined the company at that time, but it is something that gets talked about, and even with every game that comes up, it's still a topic of conversation. And there's still always that little bit of, there's some people that still feel, is it a little bit too far? Some people are a bit uncomfortable talking about it. Some people that find it absolutely hilarious, and it's trying to walk that line of, is it okay? And that's with Sniper Elite. It doesn't take it takes itself seriously, but then there are elements of it that are a little bit ridiculous, and I think that's where that's what makes it stand out slightly from some other games and gives it that sort of some of its heart, is that it's a serious game and all these things are going on and we've got this war, but then at the same time it's an adventure, and you've got this fun power fantasy, and it doesn't always take itself too seriously, so you don't have to get too bogged down in how horrific like the X-ray kill cams are. They are, for people that don't know what you're looking at, if they suddenly came along and saw that going on your TV, this huge X-ray kill cam, people are like, what is that person looking at? What are they doing? But because there's that slight lightheartedness when you play it yourself with things like the testicle shots, it takes away from the how horrific it is, and you realize, this is fun, this is a game, this is to be enjoyed. But then at the same time, as I've been repeating many times already, it's all about player choice. So we give people the options to turn off the X-ray part, turn off the cams completely, just have the quick bullet cams so that it doesn't take too long if they feel like it's too long. Or the other side, where some people like to increase how many bullet cams they have.
There you go.
Some people just want to keep getting them again and again every time. So,
that's right. That's my modus operandi right there. Every time I play one of your games, I will turn that thing to max and watch the gore unfold, because it is that lightheartedness that balances out the what could be a very serious thing. Anytime you're dealing
Yeah,
with World War II, Nazis, that kind of thing, it could carry a really heavy weight to it. And so I like to turn that cam up, put a difficulty on easy, and just watch the shrapnel fly, the bone fragments, and the grossness ensue, because there's something, dare I say, comedic about it in some cases.
exactly.
You know?
And I think that's exactly it. You're right. It's the testicle shot thing definitely adds to that comedy of it, but also with the way some of the explosions of it is so over the top gory that it does become slightly comedic, and that's how it just about gets away with being what it is. I think in this, in a modern shooter.
One of the things also, and I'm still on the topic of the cam, but not necessarily a kill cam in the traditional sense. You guys do this really well in the first level, and I don't want to spoil anything for later on players, but using that camera in a way that lets you see things. Like there is a moment where not a missile, but a bomb or some sort of artillery is fired from a bunker and it lands on a boat, and that camera, the way it tracks and gives you detail, and the wind rifts around the projectile, to me that is one of the coolest aspects that really lets you know you're playing a video game or almost an action movie in some ways. And that tends to be how I take this series in. That tends to be how I consume it. I don't know that there's a question there. I just really wanted to compliment that. I think it's really cool to see that kind of stuff.
It is. It's great, and I know the cutscene you're talking about, and it's fantastic. That seeing we normally busy seeing Carl Fairbairn's bullets slowly going towards the enemy, but seeing this huge, massive shell being fired
Yeah,
and zooming around it is just a really cool moment. And knowing that that's a
yeah.
bad guy's shell as well. It's like, oh no, this is going against me. It's good fun, and there's some great moments from it there. And there's
Now,
other points across. We do things with our explosions as well, where we slow things down. And there's an explosion. You see the shrapnel flying around. Those are like one of the kill cams that were introduced into Sniper Elite 4. And again, they over the top gory, but we added again some of the comedic value of that was there'd be an explosive crate with a toolbox on top of it. So it wasn't just shards of metal flying into someone. It was a spanner and a hammer, and those things just made it feel, oh yeah, okay, this is a little bit silly. And again, that's just that balancing act of gore and a little bit of lightheartedness.
in that element of lightheartedness, I dare say some of my favorite games of all time have to be the zombie army games, which you guys work on and implement the same kill cams and such. I would call it a spin-off series from Sniper Elite. Do you guys use the same terms as well?
Yes, yeah, we do. Yes, Zombie Army is definitely a spin-off. It started off as the very first one after V2 was Sniper Elite Nazi Zombie Army, I believe was the full name of that one. And then Zombie Army Trilogy, Zombie Army 4. So yeah, they're definite spin-offs. They're like the alternate dimension. What if Hitler had used occult forces to raise an army of the dead? And it's very B movie in the styling and the sense of it, but they're great fun. I worked on Zombie Army 4 as lead designer on that, and it's a hugely fun project to work on, and very different because realism is something you don't have to worry about as soon as you've got zombies in the game, and it's a nice sort of change of pace to the sort of game you're making. It's really good, really enjoyable.
Zombie sharks are cool too. That was just
Yes, zombie sharks are very cool. They are that zombie shark was fantastic. That was Chris Kingsley came up with the idea for the zombie shark, and it's certainly paid off. It's some good poster moments with that zombie shark.
I need to jump into the DLC on that one. I think there's two, but I need to jump into them. But I'm
Oh,
curious.
there's a lot of DLC now. It's good. There's some good fun missions in there. There's some great stuff in it. It keeps as you do. It's already starts off with wacky and Zombie Army 4 in it, but it keeps pushing that envelope even further. It's good
Nice.
fun.
I'm stoked because it is on my list to try out. But I am curious now, with it being a spin-off series, how much impact does it have on the mainline series now? Because Zombie Army Trilogy came out, and then you guys had 4, and then Zombie Army 4, and then Sniper Elite 5, and like how much do they impact each other? Do they teach lessons to one another?
They definitely do. Yeah, often there's a bit more when it comes to gunplay and things that push itself from Sniper Elite series into the Zombie Army series, just because of the way that is a spin-off. Zombie Army is suddenly like, okay, we've taken off all those rules and restrictions. What things can we do with what we had from Sniper Elite, and what can we do with those? Remember those ideas that we talked about? We're like, that's not real enough. That's not feasible. Okay, how can we take that and put it into this game? But it also does work the other way around. There'll be things with perhaps some of the sort of objectives we do. They'll be dressed up in a much more crazy way in Zombie Army, but it might be the sort of underlying core to that, to the way we want to do the objective or the delivery of some narrative that we're like, actually, yeah, that could work in Sniper Elite game the next time we're looking at that. And also just the way you take certain items and objects and picking things up. There's a lot of stuff you learn as you go along, and gunplay is one of those as well, because the gunplay is quite different in the Zombie Army games, in that the sniper rifles are still your main weapon. But with Zombie Army 4, there's a little bit more focus on your secondaries as well, allowing you to go into those and making use of them, getting the headshots. But it also led us to sort of like, oh, actually, yeah, we could lean into that a little bit more in Sniper Elite 5. We're like, yeah, we could make our secondary weapons, sidearms, that little bit more effective. Again, leaning into that player choice of, do you want to stay with just your rifle and take that sniper looping around the enemy area, taking people out of distance, or do you want to make use of your more close quarters weapons? Because in some of the previous Sniper Elite games, we would sort of almost nerfed slightly the secondary and sidearm weapons, so that your rifle is definitely the most powerful weapon in your arsenal. But ultimately, that's always going to be the case anyway, we found, because it's so long range and they're so powerful as they are anyway. There, you can get those accurate shots at distance without the consequence of somebody being close by hearing you.
Right.
So we lent into a bit more of like, yeah, what things have we learned with Zombie Army and how fun these other weapons can be to use. So there are definitely lessons that get learned both ways, on both sides of things, and it's good fun. It's good seeing those and getting to learn from the other games you're making.
Absolutely. My favorite aspect or lesson I learned was setting traps and things like that, using mines and using them well. That has served me well as I've jumped back into the Sniper Elite series. Ryan, earlier you talked to me a bit about invasion mode, and I kind of stopped it because I wanted to come back to it later. Now I'd like to really touch on it. I tend to play Sniper Elite as a single player effort, but it looks like a lot of efforts have been made to make Sniper Elite a co-op experience and a versus experience via invasion mode. Would you mind sharing with listeners the vision that you guys have and what it is that you guys are accomplishing with invasion mode and how it's been received?
Yeah, so with invasion mode, that really started early on with one of our other designers. We were discussing how do we make a tough sniper battle. It's like, we're a sniper game. How do we make a really tough sniper battle? Because ultimately, you've got the AI snipers there, and they do a really good job, and you get the glints, and you can be a bit like, oh gosh, they're gonna get me, and sometimes they do get you, but you die, and you can restart back, and then you're like, oh, I know where that dude is. I can kill him before he's any trouble now. And they only work really well once, we found quite often. And one of the ways around that is being much more scripted with things and making a scripted battle, but that really went against our kind of sandbox and choice rules that we wanted to really push in our Sniper Elite franchise. And then we were like, well, nothing beats fighting a human player. And we've had our multiplayer modes throughout the last couple of games, and we're like, that is where it's tough. You suddenly go up against other players, and you're like, whoa, this person's a really good shot, and you stay behind cover, and you are much more careful with the shots that you take. We're like, what can we do with that? And we obviously looked at other games at the time when we were going through this, the Dark Souls and Bloodborne's, and how they did things. We're like, yeah, we could do something with this, and then we could really get what so many people wanted to see. You see people talk about it on the forums and stuff, and we've discussed it many times. But getting that enemy at the gates feel of a sniper versus a sniper, and then ultimately ending up with that cat and mouse gameplay of sneaking around and being super tense. It starts off initially, even when you just go in as the ally player with the mode turned on, you're just that extra bit cautious. You know you can take out these enemy AI because you're Carl Fairburn and you can take them out. It's not a problem. You can kill these people with X-ray kill cams and go up close and stab them, and you can deal with that. You've got this whole suite of tools, but you're just that little bit tense because you're like, whoa, I don't want to go too loud here. I don't want to leave too much of a trace, because if somebody suddenly joins my game, then they're going to know where I've been or what I've been doing. And we found it just sort of snowballed from there. The idea was like, yeah, this is fun. It really, really adds a lot of tension to the game. And we did initial tests. There's a lot of play testing early on, figuring out how it was going to work, how to not make the Axis sniper too powerful or too weak. And it's such a difficult balance, and we're going to be supporting this mode for a while, so I'm sure there will be tweaks to both sides as we go along over coming months, trying to sort of figure that out. But we're really happy with the job we've done. And things come up from playtesting. This is one of the great things about game design is we're playtesting an early version of it, and we'd always been initially like, yeah, you'll come in as this Axis invader, and you're going to have this really cool sniper suit on, and you're going to look like a badass, and you're going to come through, and people are going to be like, oh no, look, I see him in the distance. Can I take him out before he gets me? But we didn't have that model to start with. So we're like, well, you're going to have to use generic soldier model. And that's what happened for a while. They were just using the normal enemy infantry character skin. And then we found people were walking around slowly pretending to be an AI. And we're like, wait, this is fun. This is great. This is suddenly another layer to the gameplay that people can choose to do. And you have people walking around pretending to be AI that you as the ally player sometimes glance over them and don't realize who it really is. And then they'll turn around, take that shot, sneak up behind you, stab you. And it's little bits like that, little nuggets like this that are so much fun when you're making a game, when you suddenly like discover these new features, these new ideas that are born out of things where you didn't necessarily expect them to come from.
See, Ryan, I very specifically said that I was a single player, and now you're making me want to go into those options and toggle that menu and start invading people's games just to see if I can pull off one of these stealth kills.
Definitely worth a try. And we know there's a lot of people. I'm a single player as well. I play a lot of games single player, and I'd worry about letting other people invade, and that's one of the key reasons we know there's a lot of people like that. So you can turn this mode off completely. And we're working on ways as well to allow you to invade your friends or be invaded by your friends as well, which softens it a bit for people sometimes, because you don't always want to be invaded by a complete random when you don't know how good they are. Whereas if it's your mate Dave, you're like, yeah, cool, I know Dave, and he's rubbish at the game, so this is going to be great. But when we're working with the Axis side as well, we found early on people were coming in and they're just like, okay, what do I do? I'm just going to run and try and find this other person. So we needed to try and get that core loop into the Axis side of things as well, of the observe, plan, execute that we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. So we gave them these abilities to like, right, okay, you don't know what you're going to go into. You need to have a look around and quickly see, is this person that I come up against gone around and left smoking radar dishes and dead bodies all over the place? Which means, yeah, you can then make a plan based on that, figure out where they've gone. Or is this person left hardly a trace anywhere? In which case it goes very quickly from you feeling like you've got the upper hand to being like, oh gosh, I don't know where this other person is. Mm-hmm. And then you've got to be really careful at observing, tagging your Axis friends that are AI around the map and tagging all of them, so that if they spot the player you'll get informed about it. Or quite often the case when you're up against somebody that's very stealthy, you'll tag 10 people, you'll be looking around, searching, and suddenly realize that, wait a minute, there's only 5 of those tagged people left now. 5 of them have gone. They've been taken out somehow. And it can quickly swap around to being super tense for the Axis player. And getting that same sort of loop in, it's sort of up to you to look around, plan, execute, figure out what it is you want to do, how you're going to approach this, was a core part for us into making sure it stays as cat and mouse from both sides. It doesn't always have to stay. It's always the Axis sniper has got the upper hand. It can't be changed around. And there was a lot of playtesting, but it's great fun. You should definitely try it out if you haven't already.
All right. So, admittedly, you sold me on it. Like without a doubt, you sold me on it because I was staunchly against it. Not in principle, but just in terms of my experience. And now I'm like, all right, this does sound super dope and super cool. I'm curious now. It's an obligatory question because you said you'd be supporting this mode for some time, and the game launched into Game Pass. That had to have brought in more players and new players to check out the title. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was great. Being on Game Pass just opened us up to a load of players that may not have got the game so early on or tried out the game early on. And with things like invasion mode, something that's getting talked about quite a lot in the reviews and on various forums and places, it then catches people attention. They're like, oh, okay, cool. I could give that a quick go because it is on Game Pass, and it's been fantastic seeing the number of players trying the game out, giving it a go, and then finding out actually they really enjoy this, and getting new people into our games and into our franchise. It's been absolutely fantastic. It's been really great.
Do you know if that was the plan from the beginning, or did that happen later on?
For what? Sorry, for having on being on Game Pass.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not sure. That's all above me. That's all the business side of things. But they always have good plans for all of our stuff. They know what they're doing. They do very well at that.
Gotcha. Well, I hope more people do check it out for sure because it's just one of my favorite series. Before we close, Blaze Knight wrote in with a rather technical question. He wanted to know, he says, rather, when you launch a game at a generational switch, how does it affect the development of the final product of the past gen, like say Xbox One, to current gen series or current gen versions of the game, like Xbox Series S and X? Is there much of a difference for you guys in terms of development when there's a generation switch?
Yeah, there is an extra layer of considerations that has to be taken into account of how do we push this game for the new generation of consoles, but still make it run and fun on the previous gen. And yeah, there's a lot of considerations. There's a lot of discussions about how we're going to make things work, but it's very important that we want the game to be the best experience it can be on all platforms. And so yeah, there's some extra work there, but it's most definitely worth it because again, you reach so many more players, and ultimately that's what we want. We want as many people as possible to play these games that we have spent years creating and absolutely love, and just want people out there to try them out and give it a go. And it's worth that extra effort and that extra work for sure. And things today as well with like crossplay we've got added in, so that's a new thing for us, and it's brilliant having so many more people being able to play the game together as well, especially when we've got our survival mode, our multiplayer games, but then if we mentioned invasion mode as well, it just increases that player base and gives people more people to play against and more fun to be had.
So cool. It's neat that that's become a staple. Things like crossplay, that the idea of more people playing together regardless of where you are, to me that is probably my favorite thing that has happened to the gaming industry in the past 10 years.
Yeah, it's great. It's really good.
I have one final question for you, and that is about Sniper Elite's future and a bit of its past, I suppose. Was there ever a discussion of taking the game to a different time period? We've been all over the place in terms of locales with World Wars. Have you considered bringing it into modern day or a different part of history at any point?
That's something early on in any games development, that's when we've got all our blue sky thinking, and there's all the millions of ideas and so much stuff goes around. And that's when things like Zombie Army get born, because you're like, oh, what could we do? Oh yeah, this would be amazing. And we're always reading what the community are talking about, what they want, and there's always people discussing, oh, wouldn't this location, this time period be fantastic? Wouldn't this area of the war be fantastic? And there's so many places we could go. But at the moment, at least for the current games, we're happy with the World War II, and carrying on with Carl's story. But yeah, who knows in the future, if we make future games, there's always a chance that we'll go somewhere else. We'll have to see. It's the usual sort of thing when we start
Yeah.
those discussions. We go through, would this be cool? Wouldn't this be awesome? Wouldn't be that?
Yeah.
And ultimately, yeah, we'll end up somewhere that will be great for the game at that time, and making the decision that we think would be best for what we can deliver to the players.
Well, you've certainly got more locales to take Carl too. I mean, he's easily the most decorated sniper in any history ever
Yeah.
at this point. But like Pacific Theater would be cool in South America. There's a lot of options you guys could have if you still want to
Exactly.
keep
There's
with his.
loads of places, and people are very, yeah. We're always getting people ask us questions. The community team are very busy with like, hey, have you thought about doing this? Could you do that? And it's great hearing people pointing out these different locations, different things we can do. Is just, it's great for us because it shows how engaged they are in our games, in our series, that they care enough that they really want to say, oh, I think this would be awesome. This would be so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And often there'll be things as well that you'll be like, oh yeah, this location, this time period would be cool. Maybe it's not for whatever reason the right time right now, but there might be elements from something there that you've talked about that you can actually get into in whatever your final setup is. So yeah, a lot of the time, ideas will spawn other ideas that then lead into something great.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's cool. It's funny when people's ideas and excitement for your game mean more work for you, you know?
Yeah.
Ryan Baker, lead designer on Sniper Elite 5. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me. Let people know if you'd care to plug a personal social, please do so, but let people know where they can find the game, play the game, and what they should be looking forward to.
Yeah, so you can play Sniper Elite 5 on Game Pass, and you can play on Xbox, you can play on PlayStation, you can play on PC, on Steam. It's WinStore. It's a fantastic game, and I urge you to give it a go. Enjoy the game, make it yours as well. Play how you want to play, and then jump in and invade some people. It's good fun.
Thank you for joining me, man.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.